Okay, try it now. No, let's not stop it. Because I don't know if I can get started again if I stop it. All right, so hopefully she'll check the sound, make sure we're actually getting sound through it. Hey, everybody. Hello, welcome again. Welcome, welcome. Howdy. Oh, God, it's going to be that kind of night. Okay, so welcome. If this is not your first time, welcome back. If it's your first time, welcome. My name is Jim Lane. I'm the Director of User Experience here at AddThis, which is where you're at right now. And I lead the design team here. I also started this meetup almost 2 years ago. We'll talk more about that later. Welcome to NoVA UX. This is the usual admin stuff we always run through here at the beginning. If you'd like to tweet about us as we go here, our handle is NoVA UX Meetup. And if you don't want to type that, you can use our hashtag NoVAUX, which is a little shorter. This is our Wi-Fi. If you haven't gotten it yet, I wrote it up here too. It's a little easier to read from the back. If you want to connect to our wireless, please feel free to do so. It's the Wi-Fi is ATW visitor, the user is AT guest, and the pass is AT12345 AT. This is I'm Jim at AddThis.com is my email. Kit Unger is my co-organizer. Kit, where'd you go? Oh well, she's someplace here. She's Kit Unger at yahoo.com. I'm Jim Lane Nova at Twitter. She's Kit Unger at Twitter. If you'd like to tweet, please feel free to do so. Let's see. So tonight, before we get to the speaker this evening, Capital One Labs was kind enough to provide the pizza this evening. Thank you very much. And this is Mick Winter. He's going to tell us a little bit about Capital One Labs and work they're doing. You want to use this thing? Hold on.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say thanks to Jim and to NoVA UX for having me tonight. And thank you, Jason. I'm actually really, really excited about your presentation. And I'll tell you why in a second. It definitely ties directly into some of the work that we're doing. So I'm with Capital One Digital, and I'm here representing both Digital as well as Capital One Labs. And I lead a design team of 12 designers. I'm a senior creative director. I work just about 2 miles up the road, right in our Towers Crescent location, which is just inside the Beltway up here on Route 7. And I wanted to talk to you guys just a little bit to tell you about what we're doing and how I might be able to change your perception of Capital One as a place where you could come and do some of the best work of your career. I actually have a few cards that I brought with me tonight, and I'm going to take these and lay these out. And these are the Capital One Design Principles cards. We've boiled down all the work that we do into 3 separate areas, and it's how we evaluate our work. And those are simplicity, ingenuity, and humanity. What you guys will see on these cards is these principles that we live by and how we evaluate our work. And I'll just give you an example of one of these. So on this ingenuity card, the headline is magical. Swoop in like a superhero with what I need before I've realized it, or maybe before I've even imagined it. Solve sticky problems that make me ask, how'd they do that, but still feels totally natural. Make me want to see it again and again. So as we're working on a design, whether it's for the bank, for card, for our financial services products in digital, we use these cards to evaluate the quality of the work. Capital One Design and Digital is growing incredibly fast, and we're looking for really talented people, the kind of people like you that are here tonight that are going to be developers, UXers, visual designers. When I started, I had 2 contractors. This was about a year ago. I now have 12 people. And the overall team is growing from 70 to 100 people on our team. So if you're interested in learning more about careers, please come and talk to me. I'll be here for the duration. And please introduce yourself and say hi. And I think Jason's topic is really valuable. We're thinking about how are we going to use beacon technology in our branches. So I'll turn it over to Jason, and thank you very much. Thanks.
So bear with us one second. We're gonna swatch over the video, and then we'll be good. Oh wait, I gotta tell one thing. I forgot. Before we start. I just wanted to mention, these really quickly, because we've actually gotten a bunch of these of late, and these are also up on the site if you want to check them out afterwards. Loop 11 is offering anyone in the group a free trial of their usability testing software. Just use the code NoVAUX. If you were here last month, UIE, their all-you-can-learn library, there's a 60-day all-access pass you can get if you go to this URL, uie.com/nova. And then finally, we've mentioned this a couple times, just a couple emails, 50% discount off of the NoVA MoDev UX, which is the 19th and 20th in May. So these are all on the site. If you want to take advantage of them, please feel free to do so. And with that, Jason LaFollette, founder and CEO of Citrus Mobile Consulting. I'm going to let you introduce yourself in the group. Sure. Cool. Excellent. All right. So let's get him set up. Here you go.
Let me go and swap over.
Here. Once you throw this on.
Oh, sorry. I was over anxious.
You want to give it a second to make sure it actually loads.
Oh, man, it worked so perfectly the first time.
I know, right?
Here, let me pull it.
Check all the caches. There we go.
All right.
Excellent.
All right. So my name is Jason LaFollette. As I was overly grandly introduced, I'm the CEO and one of the founding partners at Citrus. We're a mobile app consulting company, like less than a mile down the road, right off Tyco Road behind the Audi dealership there. Oh. And really appreciate the opportunity from NoVAUX and Jim and everybody here to talk about mobile connected devices today. It's something that's really, really passionate. It's a passionate topic for me. I have shifted Citrus's entire focus really to concentrate on mobile connected devices and the companion apps that support them. Because in my opinion, it's not only one of the fastest growing areas of mobile apps, mobile device technology, but it's also one of the most exciting and really rewarding. And that's why we get up every day and come to work. You make a lot of different types of apps, but if you don't get a kick out of it, what's the point, right? So why is it something that's exciting to us? To talk about that, we have to go back a little bit and look at this. So this is what Citrus was concentrating on for the first 4 years of its existence. And it was great. I mean, coming from my background is actually a software engineering background. Are there any other engineers in here today? Is it all people that can draw better pictures than me? So I come from a software engineering background, and so does a lot of my team members, and a lot of us come from big company backgrounds where we were doing enterprise projects. We worked on a lot of web apps and a lot of back-end systems, a lot of things that we could never excite our parents and friends about, telling them how we sped up that database index and got those queries out faster. But this was different. All of a sudden, we were, as engineers, we were putting stuff out there that people could download off of the App Store, and they could touch it, and they could actually interact with it. And there were sensors, we had GPS, we had accelerometers and cameras, and that was really, really cool. But maybe 6 months, 7 months ago, we did our first mobile connected device project, and that changed our entire perspective. it really opened us up to the fact that there's this entire world around our apps that mobile connected devices allow us to interact with. It's just, it's a richer experience. And from a user experience point of view, it's a very cool design challenge to now think of what you're working on, not only on this screen, but outside of it with a little mini ecosystem full of little devices and watches and fitness devices and just everything under the sun. So before we talk about user experience, I wanted to go through just a few kind of background pieces and just get us all in the same frame of reference for the conversation. So let's take a very high-level concept. I keep saying mobile connected device. And why do I keep saying that? I keep saying that because everybody knows about everything on the top row here. These are the wearables. Wearables eat up all the press, they're everything you hear about, but mobile connected devices are a much, much broader topic. And from an interactivity or user experience point of view, it's important to think about not just working with wearables as a class of connected device, but everything from scales and locks to crazy self-balancing skateboards and thermostats. And it's a very, very rich area. It's exciting from an opportunity perspective because it's growing so quickly. You couldn't walk through CES this year without seeing another wearable. Most of them were still wearables. But there were tons of mobile connected devices at CES. And all the analysts are talking about Apple's iWatch and how that's going to fundamentally change how we monitor our health and what it's going to do to the bottom line of Apple, hopefully this year, for all you other stockholders out there. It's been a rough ride. It's a big industry. Credit Suisse estimates that in the next 3 to 5 years, wearables alone are going to be a $50 billion market. It's kind of amazing how fast this is springing up. So with all the buzz around wearables, it's easy to miss these everyday objects. Everybody's coming out with a mobile connected device and a companion app now. Oral-B, if you haven't seen it, just released their Bluetooth connected toothbrush. This is clearly a gimmick, but I think everybody can see how mobile connectivity is really changing how we interact with a lot of these very mundane and very typical everyday devices. So that's the why. So over a decade ago, we were introduced to the Internet of Things, and unfortunately, now it's 2014, and a lot like my flying car that's not in my garage, I haven't seen the Internet of Things. Most of my devices, other than phones and tablets and computers, are not Internet connected. And there's kind of a fundamental set of reasons why that is. So there are certainly some technical and complexity limitations that don't allow full Internet connectivity to be packaged in a watch like this, or even smaller in a Jawbone Up 24 or a Fitbit Flex. But what we have been able to start realizing is this personal network of things. And the personal network of things was given rise to by smartphones and Bluetooth low energy, or Bluetooth Smarts, or Bluetooth 4.0, depending on which back of the box or marketing spiel you're reading about. So Bluetooth solved the power consumption problem, right? I know this is the engineering part of it, and I'll get right through it, but it's actually important for the user experience. BLE lets devices like the Shine activity tracker last for up to 4 months on a common watch cell battery. And that's just something that we never, ever could get to yet, maybe in the future, with a Wi-Fi or a direct-to-internet connection. And that doesn't come without trade-offs. The range on BLE is about 100 meters, and typically we're talking more like 30, 50 meters to get good transfer rates. And when I say good transfer rates, I actually mean really, 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 really slow transfer rates. I mean, so we've done a lot of kind of lab and benchmark testing, and we've been able to get maybe 3 kilobytes a second when you're moving the typical direction that you're pushing data, which is from a device like the Shine out to a phone or to a tablet. It's actually half that. It's like those old DSL connections where you get really good downstream and really bad upstream. It's half the bandwidth going from the phone to the device. So if you're trying to craft a user experience that depends on pushing a lot of data through to these devices, it's not there yet. And to just kind of put it in perspective, 3 kilobytes a second is less than half of what some of you were connecting to AOL with like 15 years ago. A 56K modem is 7 kilobytes a second. No, I've lost my connection. So much for technology. So we'll continue on here. So what was the other part of the equation? So we said there were kind of some technical limitations that didn't let us realize this Internet of Things yet. Power consumption was one of them, and BLE solved that. The other piece is the complexity piece. How do you package up these little devices, these watches, these scales, without a complex user interface? How do you crunch all the data that comes off of these devices and meaningfully display it or prep it so that you can push it up to a web server over like a REST web service or something? You can't. Most of these Bluetooth devices are incredibly rudimentary, and they process really raw data out to the phone. So that smartphone, that has been kind of the genesis of providing that surrogate UI and that surrogate processor that allows these connected devices to basically be sensor connectors or wireless displays, and a lot of the heavy lifting comes on the smartphone side and as part of your user experience. So let's talk about experience. This is probably preaching to the choir. This might be a well-known slide for you guys, but for most people we talk to, especially our customers, they have no idea what it means to pursue behavior-driven development or behavior-driven design. They come to us with a laundry list of features, and that's all they can look for. And they're happy if they can check off all the boxes and see all the UI elements that lead up to every feature that they wanted. And to kind of gloss over the concept, we probably like most, if not all of you, ask the user about behaviors. What are their goals? What do they want to accomplish when they're using the app? Before we can talk about screens or buttons or anything else, we have to talk about user behaviors. And we like to listen for features and write them down and put them in the backlog. But at the end of the day, if we can't map them to the behavior, we know that we're concentrating on the wrong thing, and we're just going to end up with a disconnected set of buttons and dials and screens. So what's the behavioral life cycle for a mobile connected device and its companion app? And we have 4 key stages in the life cycle. Pairing, wearing, if you're a wearable, let's call it using, if it's not a wearable, if it's a scale sitting on the floor there. Syncing and charging. There may be some exciting things that you're trying to accomplish specifically in this wearing arena. Like if I have a wireless heart rate monitor, obviously part of that is capturing my heart rate, maybe alerting me if I'm above or below a target range. But really, we can boil it down to the wearing phase. Pairing happens exactly once, but is really important and really fraught with user error and frustration and never quite seems to work very well. Syncing is followed by wearing is the second most popular state or behavior that the user is trying to accomplish when they either pick up that device or open your app. And then certainly charging, although it seems mundane, actually have 2 full slides on it. So we'll see when we get there. So let's talk about pairing. It's hopefully a one-time thing, but it actually packs a ton of very mundane, very boring activities into one place. And it usually starts not with pairing, although if you're smart, you've tricked your user into thinking that they're going down the path of pairing immediately. It usually starts with account creation. So we talked about the personal network of things, and in some cases, it's definitely true that your data is never going to leave your connected device and your phone. But 99% of the time, that's not the case. 99% of the time, these are actually internet-connected devices via the phone or via the tablet. So what do we need to push our data up to the cloud? We need to have an account for the user. So the best user experience practice that we've observed actually comes from Fitbit. And they put the account creation right at the end of the whole process of walking you down this exciting trail of selecting which device you had. Is it the Flex? Hopefully not the Force. Is it the Fitbit One? You go through and you put in, you classify your device, you put in information, personal information about your height, your weight, your age, try and help it deliver a more personalized experience. And then right before you pair, kind of sandwiched in the middle there, they go after that name, email, and password. And that's nice because they took something that's typically a roadblock and makes people, I guess after you buy the device, you don't necessarily just skip it, but it doesn't set the user up to feel like they're down this exciting path of getting into their device. So our first recommendation is to try and push that account creation as far down as possible in the process. The second piece, which Shine does, Fitbit strangely does not, is to allow third-party authentication. Most of us have a Facebook account. If not, we have a Twitter account or a Google Plus account. There's certainly a small percentage of users who don't have any of these, and I think that's usually the argument that comes up when the business decides that third-party authentication is just not going to work if it doesn't reach every single user. We always push back against that because it's something that provides such a fundamentally better user experience that doing something like Shine or what we've done with one of our companion apps, just give them both options. Let them log in with Facebook or create their own account. Another popular misconception on the business side of things is that if you don't create your own brand new account, capture their email address, that somehow you're not going to be able to contact them, which is patently false. You have an app running on their phone. You can reach out and touch them anytime you want. Or that somehow you're not going to be able to capture as much information or keep track of the user. Obviously, not something that's true, but usually a blocker. So once you've got the account creation part down, now it's time to actually do the pairing. And pairing, and actually to back up a little bit, mobile connected devices in general are kind of an interesting area in mobile. They're at an intersection of embedded engineering and app engineering or app software development. And there's all these little nuances that as a user experience designer and as a developer, if you don't understand how the hardware works and some of the limitations in it, it gets to be very difficult to design a good experience. So there's actually a very different set of steps that you go through when you're first connecting to a device than you go through every second, third, fourth, and 99th time that you connect to it and pull data off of it. The first step is you got to figure out which of the devices are yours. It's not a given that your Fitbit is the only one in the room. Does anybody have a Fitbit in the room? Okay. Fitbit Flex? Flex? The one, okay. All right, I might not be able to do it with yours. So you got to figure out which device in the room is yours. And that requires the device to be discoverable. Fitbit is kind of interesting. They've bucked all the trends, and maybe this is why they have 70% of the wearable market right now. They put their device in discoverable mode by default, 100% of the time. And where I was going was, if you download BLE Utility or some of the other Bluetooth scanners off of the App Store, at least for iOS, I could connect to anybody who has a Fitbit Flex in here. I haven't tried a one yet. It's wide open. They are foregoing a little bit of the security with the hopes that the complexity, ramping down the complexity is going to pay off for them. And in some ways it seems to be. So if you're not lucky and you're using something like a Fitbit or you have some kind of hardware limitation, you're going to have to craft a user experience that takes into account the fact that I have to force this device into pairing mode. So this is a screenshot from one of our companion apps, and it's a little foot pod that tracks a little more hardcore running data like foot strike and cadence and other stuff for medium to hardcore runners. But it's a really small device, and it has a lot of limitations where being constantly in a discovery mode is a little bit more of a drain on the battery. So I think a lot of people, including the Nike Fuel Band, our Milestone Pod, they opt to force the user to press a button, or in our case, to execute a gesture to put the device into discovery mode. And the advice that we have here is don't take anything for granted, that pressing a button is easy or executing a gesture is easy. You explicitly have to walk the user step by step, screen by screen, literally segmented onto multiple screens down that workflow for getting into discovery mode. We found out that the words shake were being interpreted by everybody, literally everybody in our office, to mean you should shake the pod, shake it really vigorously to put it into discovery mode, when in fact it was looking for you to wiggle it. So our advice, just skip it if you can. Be in discoverable mode by default. So the second step is the actual pairing. And there's multiple pairing modes that these devices can utilize. The best mode, in our opinion, the one that Fitbit uses, is literally called Just Works. And Just Works means there's no exchange of keys, there's no PIN that has to be entered in order to pair these devices up. It's literally discover, record the fact that I know your MAC address. He may record the fact that my phone has connected, and from then on, we can contact each other. So now that we're paired, let's start wearing or using our devices. There are two states and really one big fundamental question that you have to ask yourself when you're designing an experience for a mobile connected device. And that is it going to be constantly connected, or is it going to be on demand? With my Pebble, it is constantly connected. I am literally getting messages from my wife about how I need to stop for batteries because the baby monitor is going dead, and all of your tweets right now. But I expect that. I expect that whenever an alert comes in on my phone, that it's also going to be pushed to my watch. I also expect that I can drill in here to my apps and check in on Foursquare. So I demand a constantly connected experience for something like a smartwatch. Fitbit, it gives you a little bit of flexibility, and most of the other fitness tracker-based wearables are tend more toward an on-demand style, although Fitbit has both options configurable in the app. And the on-demand style means just what you think it means. I'm going to have to pull that app open to initiate a sync or initiate some kind of connectivity between the app and the wearable every single time. And there's a lot of pros and cons. In our opinion, on-demand is actually a harder user experience to plan for. You have to walk the user through a lot more steps. You also have to give the user a lot more feedback about the state of connectivity, because when you're constantly connected, you've got that connection spun up. It's usually fairly low latency. When you're on demand, that's not going to be the case. So now we get into the actual user experience, and we segment this in two places: on device and in app. So on device, this is what we get a kick out of. It is a really cool and different challenge to design these user experiences. It is, you thought mobile was minimal. We moved from web, where we have these giant screens and really high precision pointing devices, and now we're using gestures and have small screen sizes. Moving to mobile connected devices is just amps it up 100% more. And the interesting part is you get a lot of unique tools that you don't really have or you don't really make use of on a smartphone. Now you're using the accelerometer in a much different way all the time. Accelerometer for a mobile connected device is to it what the touchscreen is to the smartphone. The APIs that you have use and you're kind of designing for a mobile connected device have abstracted the accelerometer to give you tons of little gestures, taps, rapid tap, short tap, long tap, number of taps in a period of seconds. The Fitbit Flex lets you put it in and out of sleep mode, dismiss and re-enable alerts, and check your progress towards your goal, all with different series and rates of taps. So if you're designing here, you're always thinking about taps and accelerometer. You also have a lot different series of cues to let the user know what's going on. Vibration becomes a little more of a de facto to let the user know that something's happening. Whereas on the smartphone, or not on the tablet, I guess, on the smartphone, vibration is something that the user is controlling. You're designing for physical buttons, but not in the way that people used to design for hard buttons where you had a label on that button. It's a lot more like the experience on name your TV set-top box or streaming box, where you have a set of fairly generic buttons, where you have inner, you have back, you have directional buttons, and they take on different contexts as you drill into different activities or move between screens on your device. Touch screens, I think they're coming. They certainly haven't been fairly well received yet. The Gear 1 had a lot of complaints from users about the fact that the touchscreen interface there wasn't nearly enough real estate to make use of touch. So we'll see what happens, but for now, we're not talking about touchscreens. So now if we move to the app user experience, in general, every app's different, right? You're trying to accomplish a different goal in that use or that wear category of behaviors. Your behaviors are going to be different than my behaviors in our running focused app. So we're going to have a lot of different things, but there'll still be some commonalities, at least right now. There seem to be a lot of commonalities that are shared by these companion apps. They are very, very stripped down. They tend to present data in heavy hierarchy that involves user drilling, almost like kind of the first crop of iOS apps that came out, where hierarchy and nav-based drilling in and in and in and out and out and out was the order of the day for every app. We've started to get away from that in a lot of the newer applications, but when it comes to mobile connected devices, that's still the order of the day. We also see a purpose-driven focus on executing exactly one action at a time. And so you can see 3 out of the 4 screens on here have a nav drawer where we're hiding a lot of our actions, our settings, our screens behind that drawer. And then we're using these pageable views to move between different parts of the same action. The Pebble is probably the most different of the entire crop, and in my opinion, one of the worst apps out there for mobile connected devices. It is not very responsive. It's kind of a loose collection of features. It's actually designed literally, seems like more of a feature-based design than a behavior-based design. So kind of the last thought on the companion apps, and I don't have a lot of how to do this actionably. Maybe you guys do. I see a lot of opportunity to take into account the environment of the wearable. So unlike other mobile apps where people are using them when they're in line at Starbucks or they have a spare few minutes or they're trying to kill time, these mobile connected device companion apps are generally going to be used in a particular environment. If it's a wearable or a fitness-based app, it's when I'm executing my swimming activity or my running activity or my biking activity. So how do we design user experience taking into account that we're going to be in motion most of the time when that app is being used? Other mobile connected devices are focusing on sleep. So how do we design an app user interface thinking through the fact that people are going to be using this very late at night and potentially very early in the morning? Does that influence our decision at all? And we haven't really seen it happening yet, but it seems like kind of an interesting area that I wouldn't be surprised to see these apps go. So after we get through wearing, obviously we want to do something with all this data that we've collected. So we move on to syncing. And syncing starts with a user experience that it quickly shows users whether or not we're synced or whether or not we need to sync. It's really disappointing to open these apps, drill in, look at all these metrics, read all my stats, and then realize that I didn't have up-to-date data. So one of the key behaviors that you're facilitating is alerting the user when they need to sync and making it easy to sync. Shine, who's in the middle here, does one of the best jobs I've seen, although it's kind of a pretty low bar, at letting the user know in plain English or in plain conceptual terms when they last synced. 7 hours ago. Everybody else, ourselves included, most of the time, likes to display things as a date and timestamp. I don't know about you guys, most of you are probably smarter than me, but when I see 1/24/14, I don't conceptualize how many weeks ago that was or how many hours ago it was based on the timestamp. So little nuances like that clue me in to the fact that my data is stale are very interesting. So interesting, in fact, that I think there's probably a lot of room for alerting the user in a much bigger way than anybody's doing right now. I've observed a lot of my coworkers pull up their Flex stats to show me, actually go to the web. So this is interesting, the fact that we're pushing this data all the way back to the cloud, all the way to the internet. Go to the web, and my stats are out of sync. I can't sync from the web, so now I have to pull out my phone, boot it up, and then sync. So letting people know, am I synced, is a key part of the syncing behavior. So once I know that I am synced, or in this case I am not synced, I need to let people know, am I syncing? It seems silly, but back to BLE, having those trade-offs to maintain that low energy profile and that 3 kilobits a second pushing that data up. If it's been a while since I've synced, I could be multiple minutes in a syncing exercise. some early versions of our Milestone Pod app that were just early alphas between us and the client. We didn't have a lot of the syncing notifications in, and they thought the app was frozen because it was just sitting there like it should, syncing data. We've taken a very traditional approach with modal alerts to let the user know as they go through each step of the syncing process. And we like to break it down into multiple areas because even though we can't really reliably predict the percentage complete because the device isn't actually sophisticated enough to tell us how much it's going to send over, we can at least tell people as we move through different stages of the syncing process and make them feel like something's actually moving forward. Shine doesn't do that, but they have a really cool, really elegant way of letting people know that syncing is happening. So they use the fact that BLE is also a good proxy. The BLE signal is a good proxy for proximity, and they show this circle prior to showing radiating rings. They show a circle where you place your shine to initiate syncing, and the fact that the shine is metallic, and that BLE tells the phone that the shine is 12 inches or less from the phone, initiates the syncing. And they probably got a little bit of a delay in there to make it look really nice, like the touch actually did it. But they will show you throughout the syncing process this animated view that something is in fact going on. So last feature, charging. It's really tough to prevent a bad user experience if I pull on my watch or I get on my bike and my battery's dead. Even more so, that self-balancing, which is a true mobile connected device that just debuted on Kickstarter. If I pull that open and I've got no juice to ride. So even though your app can't charge the battery, and in fact the device itself is probably plugged in somewhere away from your phone when it's charging, showing the user battery status and whether or not we're charging, niceties. Everybody kind of takes the cop out of the showing quarters of charge. Shine and Fitbit do too, although if you drill in on Fitbit you'll see a percentage that's a little richer. What we haven't seen anyone do yet is to start to get predictive about how much time is left. These are action-oriented devices. These are devices you wear around. It's great that my Pebble will pop an alert when I'm at 20% battery and then again when I'm at 10% battery. That doesn't help me a whole lot if I'm about to go on a 3-day trip and I know that I usually get 5 to 7 days out. I need to know a little bit more. And it's kind of annoying to have to download a companion app just to check the charge of my battery. So letting your users know, the other side of it is when you're charging, I want to grab these devices and I want to run with them. So letting my user know how much time I have left to full charge is also important and something that will happen, but people aren't really baking into the app yet. So there you go. Pairing, wearing, syncing, charging. Those are the user behaviors that we're really targeting here with mobile connected devices. And the last thing, I know we said we talked about iBeacons on here, but I knew I had way too much content to really do iBeacons justice. And this is also a shameless plug for the fact that we're having a meetup next week that focuses purely on iBeacons and microlocation. But just to hit iBeacons really quickly, because they are a really easy way for anybody to start to get into mobile connected device apps. The iBeacon is a mobile connected device. It's a separate little device. It's interacting with your app. There's really good, easy to use APIs around it right now. So going out and buying a beacon from Estimote or if you go to Qualcomm's website, they'll actually give you 3 of their gimbal beacons for free. You can convince them you're semi-legit and they're going to do something with them. But beacons are interesting as the next generation of geolocation, where they're not really answering the where am I, although microlocation kind of suggests they are. They're answering what am I near. And this great infographic or graphic that I stole from nerdery.com shows all the granularity that I have when I'm working with a beacon, at least in Apple's world. It's not a lot. I know that I'm outside range and I don't see a beacon. I know if my beacon is far, near, or immediate. That's really, really all that I get. And what can I do with that information? I can register for an alert to be pushed, either a local notification, well, actually only a local notification, to allow the user to open my app. If I'm using Passbook, which we like to call the app Lite, you can bring your pass to the lock screen. That's kind of interesting. Starbucks is starting to do this. The Apple Store, which actually uses the gimbal beacons as their beacon of choice, are using that feature. And lastly, you can transparently log information. So the fact that I've seen a beacon allows my app to wake up and do something for a very, very finite amount of time. But it is usually long enough for me to kick off, at least log something to disk, and maybe if I'm lucky, push that log information up to the web. So that's the iBeacon teaser. If you want to hear more, please visit the State of Mobile DC. We've got a breakout section next Thursday, a little before 7 o'clock. And that's all I have. I think I bored at least 50% of you to tears. So hopefully you learned something new. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to do my best to answer them after the fact. Thank you.
Questions?
When you're doing the hierarchy for the screens and pages and functions, what type of framework do you use to kind of document that for yourself?
How do we? Oh, sure. So the question was, when we're doing that nav-heavy or that hierarchy-heavy navigation inside of an app, how do we document that process? And my assumption is you're talking about during the design phase. Right. So we like to do prototypes. So our lead designer here, what are we prototyping with? What are the three that we're looking at this week?
This week we're looking at Envision app, Quartz Composer, which we've used in the past, and well, we're actually throwing in HTML, CSS prototyping into the mix this time too, and just regular old paper prototyping.
So we certainly start with plain old whiteboard wireframes, but as quickly as possible, we like to get them out to something that's lightweight but interactive, so that we can communicate to the entire team, to the client, how is this workflow working? What are the steps? What are the drills? How far down do I have to go? What information do I see on each drill? Yes, yes. Is that the question? Okay. Anything else? All right. Oh, okay.
So you mentioned how some of the devices make the choice between being always discoverable versus kind of on-demand discoverable. What's the nature of the security trade-off of being always discoverable? Because that seems like you recommend it to be always be discoverable.
Right.
So what's the security?
So on discoverability, there is a small security trade-off. In the same way that not broadcasting the SSID on your Wi-Fi router gives you a little bit added security, but it's really minimal. And in fact, someone can still sniff your Bluetooth packets and find the presence of your device. So the discoverability, which is why we definitely recommend that you avoid the complexity there. Discoverability doesn't buy you a lot. It's just one extra piece. It's actually that pairing step that leads to the more secure connection. Because typically, if you're not doing a just works style of pairing, if you're doing a key exchange, or if you have some pre-agreed upon key that's maybe written on the box or on a sticker or something. When you're doing that, typically that key being exchanged also initiates an encryption or an encrypted connection that device is now tied or literally paired with the phone. So it is not going to accept a new device, or it's not even going to listen to another MAC address, which obviously can be spoofed, but hey, it's a lot harder. It's not going to accept another connection until you tell it to forget that pairing, which usually and potentially why like the discovery is just part of the process, because kicking it back into discovery mode kind of unlocks it and lets the Bluetooth device reset that pairing.
Okay, do we have any questions on the Hangout? Nope. Do we have anybody on the Hangout?
Oh, hi, Mom.
Excellent. Will we be able to get you to post your slides?
Absolutely.
On the event page?
Sure.
So we can look for those. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Just quick announcements here. Awesome. There we go. That's the free stuff. We'll go back to this. Excellent. Oh, and I'll throw in a note. We are using Envision app as well for prototyping on my team. So it's a pretty cool piece of software if you want to check it out. I think it's, where's Banaz? She's still here? It's like $15 a month, I think. This is the beginning plan on it, something like that. Cool. All right. So next month, we are going to be talking about a topic that I get asked almost every month about. So finally, we're going to do this topic, which is all about transitioning into UX. I'm a visual designer, I want to get into UX. I'm a developer, I want to get into UX. I work in the government, I want to get into UX. And I get asked this a lot. So David Panarelli is going to come, he's a consultant. He's also an instructor for General Assembly. He's going to come, and that should be a really interesting talk that a lot of folks have been asking about. So that's next month on May 21st. 2 days before that are MoDev UX, 19th and the 20th, and we're an event partner for that. And then in June, on the 18th, is our 2-year anniversary. Huzzah. We passed 900 members yesterday, and we're going to see if we can get to 1,000 by June. So we'll see. So that'll be fun. There will be cake. So that'll be fun. Any other events anybody wants to mention that's coming up to share with the group? Really? Meetups? Cool stuff? All right. Excellent. I try to share them on the Twitter account if you follow us there when there's other events going on at the Meetups. We just had Big Data DC here last night. Excellent. So, question I ask every month, who is hiring? All right. Who wants to talk about who they're trying to hire? Anybody? Go ahead. Cool. Cool. What's the name of the company again? Results Direct, Mobile Project Manager. Excellent. All the folks on the web, you're not going to catch most of this. I'm really sorry. Who else is hiring? Go ahead. Fantastic. Who else? Nick.
Yeah, like you guys heard at the beginning, Capital One is hiring for all different levels for our digital office or digital design. So we're looking for visual designers, looking for prototyping developers, we're looking for UX architects, and if you know anybody that's on the product side, we're looking for product owners.
Excellent. And I'll mention, I'll go to a few more here also. If you're looking to hire folks, there's a message board on the event site from for NoVA UX, where you can post jobs. We have a bunch of stuff posted there if you're ever looking, or if you want to post your position. Please feel free to do so. Anybody else want to talk about what they're looking for? Go ahead.
So I work for Digital. We're looking for all the same stuff. Front-end engineers, mobile engineers, politicians, architects, user experience designers, and
Okay. Excellent. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I work for NetIQ, actually right down the road. We're looking for a UX UI developer, AngularJS, Max, strong design sense with concept for technologies, user experience. We have a product that's
Okay. Is that all one person? Or multiple people?
one person, primarily a UI developer who's got a strong design aesthetic.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Good luck with that. Okay. Anybody else? So, all those folks who raised their hands, if you're looking for a position, hit them up afterwards. We're going to be here mingling and stuff for a little while, so check them out. We've had lots of people find jobs and contracts in the group, which is always fun. That's awesome. Any other announcements anybody wants to make? Anybody? Last call? Excellent. Okay, so help us spread the word. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+. And let your friends know about events where we have them every month, pretty much, every 4 to 5 weeks, depending on the calendar. Next one is 5 weeks from now. And if you have any feedback for the group, if you'd like to sponsor pizza for an event, if you'd like to be standing up here talking rather than me, hit me up afterwards. I've also got my cards like littered all over the counter over there. They're the orange square things, the plus on the front. I'd love to hear from you. Just drop me a line, and we'll talk. And the last thing I'll mention is thank you again to Jason. Thank you again, Nick. And thanks for helping me out with the Hangout kit. That's Kit Unger, my co-organizer. She was here before. If you're sitting in a black chair or near a black chair, if you can help us just like grab those, pick them up, and help us carry those back, that makes cleaning up a little easier. That'd be really cool. Thank you for coming, everybody, and we will see you next month. Thank you.